Hi, everybody. I'm here with Dr. Will Cole. Thank you so much for coming. to coming.
Thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
So, if you don't know who Dr. Will Cole is, which I'm pretty sure you know because I already introduced to him in my emails and platforms, he's a leading functional medicine expert. Actually, you were named one of the in the 50 top functional medicine, right?
Yeah,
Of the world.
yeah,
It's amazing.
yeah.
Will,
Thank you.
I feel so honored that you're here sharing this space with me and this having this conversation. You are the author of two books, which your newest one is The Inflammation Spectrum
Mhm.
and also Ketotarian. And I have both books and I really love them. I love the way you just explain things. It's so like
Thank you.
refreshing and you really start from the gut, which is so important. And
Mhm.
I love that. That's actually how being a health coach and promote a great lifestyle started because I was so fascinated with digestion and the whole digestive system and everything. Um, so let's start with the questions, okay?
Yeah, let's go for it.
My first question to you is what is inflammation? And are there any symptoms? Because I know you talk about inflammation. But do we only have symptoms when it's a chronic inflammation?
Yeah, good question. So inflammation is a product of our immune system. So it's not inherently bad. It fights viruses and bacteria. It's actually a great part of our immune system when it's in balance. The problem is when inflammation's thrown out of balance. Chronic inflammation is like a forest fire burning in perpetuity. That's an issue. Chronic inflammation is the underlying commonality between just about every health problem we face as a nation and as a world. I mean, when you look at diabetes and heart disease, cancer, those are all chronic inflammatory health issues. Autoimmune issues are chronic inflammatory issues. To digestive problems, fibromyalgia, musculoskeletal things, arthritis, all inflammatory. To even the mental health issues that people are going through. There's a whole field of research in the scientific literature referred to as the cytokine model of cognitive function. It's basically cytokines are pro-inflammatory cells. So it's looking at how inflammation impacts how our brain works. It's looking at how inflammation impacts mental health. And in the West, our thinking, we like to separate mental health from physical health, but it's one and the same. Mental health is physical health. There's physiological components to why people have mental health issues. And that is largely research is pointing to having inflammatory components to them. This disturbance of the immune system, this imbalance of the immune system. So it can manifest, inflammation can manifest in many different ways depending on who you're talking to. And it exists on a spectrum, hence the name of my second book, The Inflammation Spectrum, meaning it's not a one size fits all. It doesn't look the same way for everybody. But it's from on one end of the inflammation spectrum, it's the low grade fatigue, maybe the background anxiety, maybe some bloating, maybe some muscle soreness or tightness on one end of the spectrum. And then on the other end of the inflammation spectrum, it's the full blown autoimmune condition or diabetes or a mental health issue. And then everything in between. So it doesn't look the same way. And there are, like, by the time somebody's diagnosed with an autoimmune condition or diabetes or any one of these, one end of the inflammation spectrum, by the time it's diagnosable, research estimates that these issues have been brewing on the inflammation spectrum for 4 to 10 years prior to that diagnosis. They didn't happen overnight. So there's a lot of signs and symptoms that people can look into. They can check in with their body and be intuitive with their body to see, is this normal or not? And, we have to know what we're up against to do something about it. And it's many times very easy for people to proverbially put their head in the sand or ignore it because they're busy and put it on the back burner. But the reality is, when you're talking about this trajectory, this continuum of inflammation issues, it's important to be honest with yourself and say, is this normal? Should I be dealing with this, whatever symptom you're talking about? And I talk about in the book how the inflammation spectrum, there's 7 main sections on that spectrum. We're talking about the gut, like you said. We're talking about the brain and the connection between the two. The gut's referred to as your second brain. It's formed from the same fetal tissue. When babies are growing in their mom's womb, your gut and brain are formed together and formed from the same fetal tissue. And they're inextricably linked for the rest of our life through the gut-brain axis. And 95% of serotonin is made in the gut, stored in the gut. And you think of it, if you think of it from a physical level, your intestines even resemble the brain. And that's partly because of that. So, and then we talk about the hormone system and blood sugar regulation and detoxification and musculoskeletal and autoimmunity. And what's this concept called polyinflammation? It's inflammation in more than one area. So this is all the different ways that inflammation can look at, but these are largely things that people can overcome and improve and support and heal from. And that's my day job. My day job is consulting patients online via webcam, just like we're talking right now, about these things. Yeah. And giving people answers and tools to why they feel the way that they do. So yeah, that's my long-winded answer on inflammation.
So just give me an example, okay? People are diagnosed, somebody's diagnosed with diabetes. What are the signs they missed? I mean, were they just going on by the day thinking that's normal? Like, what is it, a sign that they missed? Was it like maybe, what did they miss?
Yeah. I mean, it depends on the person, but I mean, these are the reason why I started the Inflammation Spectrum book out with a quiz is because the quiz is for people to check in with themselves. So we go over those 7 main sections on the inflammation spectrum, and then the 8th section being the connection between the 7, polyinflammation. And it's like for blood sugar specifically, because you said like, what about diabetes? Well, it could be the hangriness, like being hungry and angry and irritable if you miss meals, if you feel like you have low blood sugar, if you have trouble losing weight, if you're feeling like shaky from low blood sugar symptoms, if maybe the doctor ran triglycerides and you see high triglycerides being higher, because that's sort of the Paul Revere of, from a metabolic syndrome standpoint, triglycerides will typically spike way before the glucose and the A1C, the 3-month average of your blood sugar, are spiking. So there's both subjective, like signs and symptoms in someone's life they can see, but there's also lab objective data for you to look at that trajectory, engage that from a lab standpoint, which is why I'm such an advocate for people to check in with themselves from a lab standpoint. Mm-hmm. And we run those labs for people around the world, but you can also, I put in the book, these sidebars so they can maybe have their local doctor run it if they don't want a functional medicine doctor, to give them like objective benchmarks to see where they're at. So there's both lifestyle and lab ways to check in with their body. And that's just diabetes and blood sugar issues. Yeah. We can look at the hormones and mental health and gut issues. Those are all this trajectory of mild symptoms to extreme symptoms. And what do those look like for the person?
Okay. Yeah. My other question is, actually, you mentioned that signs of chronic inflammation are moodiness, pain, to be in pain, and fatigue.
Yeah.
But I'm a mom of 2 girls, and after birth, I felt all that. I still feel it. I still feel sometimes like moody. I'm sleep deprived.
Yeah.
I'm fatigued sometimes, and I don't even drink anymore. I feel like hungover. Are those symptoms of fatigue, right? Like you're like hungover, but you actually are sleeping, or you didn't go out or anything. Is that signs of fatigue?
It is, yeah. And it's tough. You're in that.
Depleted, right? Is that why we're so depleted? Because we gave all, like, when they were in our belly, and then when we were breastfeeding, and we're still giving it all for them.
Yeah, it's postnatal depletion for sure. It's something that I see a lot clinically, where you've given lots of things, like actual aspects of you on a physical level and a mental, emotional, and spiritual level for sure. And that's a tough window to be in, because many people that are new moms, they'll go to their doctor and they're feeling fatigued or they're feeling depressed, and the doctors just say, well, you're a new mom, which equates to just settle for it. Just settle with it, just let it be. But the reality is some of these things linger beyond just being a new mom. That may have been the onset, but then the kids are older and they're getting older and you're still feeling this way. And that is when we typically come in functional medicine and look, this is not just new mom. The new mom giving birth and being a new mom may have been the catalyst, the tipping point, the onset of it. But during pregnancy and after pregnancy, there's a lot of hormone shifts. There's a lot of immune system shifts. And that can be a catalyst for many people with hormonal issues or autoimmune inflammation spectrum issues. And you should never trump a mom or a woman's intuition, is that if they know this is not right for them, and maybe it is just the adaptation in this transition time of being a new mom, but that doesn't mean you can't be supported through that time. What can you do to mitigate that and to overcome that faster and be supported through it? It's not enough to just say, well, just let it be, you're a new mom. But maybe it's not just being a new mom. Maybe the new momness shifted something in your hormones or immune system that should be dealt with, especially if it's going on for years past being a new mom. So it's definitely, my heart goes out to you and anybody going through that, because it's an isolating thing, because everybody, thinks you look normal, or it's a very easy cultural explanation for why you should be feeling the way that you do. And things get unchecked because of that. So it is definitely an important part of my work.
We have to learn to go our day by day without sleeping,
Right, right.
I don't remember the last time I slept 8 hours without interruption.
Yeah.
So sometimes I listen, and I was the one before being a mom. I'm like, oh, it's so important to sleep your 8 hours, blah, blah, blah. And when I hear a podcast or something like that, I'm like, oh my God, no, you're not.
Yeah. And that alone could be a problem. And you just have to, you can only control what you can control. And this is a season of your life, and for any new mom that's out there, I have 2 kids. I have a 13-year-old son and a 10-year-old daughter. I remember those days.
Mm-hmm.
And that season will pass. And once you start getting sleep again, we need to check in with your body and to see if these things are lingering, even though you're getting good sleep.
Yeah,
but even when you're not getting good sleep, there's things that you can do to support yourself. You can't change the sleep. You're still not going to get good sleep. But what can you support? What can you improve?
That's so true. It's like our reality, and we don't have to be stuck just like, okay, I don't feel well because I don't sleep. No, what else am I going to do?
Yeah.
Am I going to follow certain rituals that I know they're going to,
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, I remember when I was so moody and I was making this excuse that I'm a mom and I'm not sleeping. And then I'm like, no, listen, I'm not going to be this switch every day. So that's why I focus so much on eating, healthy and having self-care. I read this quote the other day saying that if you love your children, take care of the mom. And it's so true. I have somebody that helps me. I'm building a business and everything, and I need to be healthy for them and for the people around me. So yeah. Okay. I have another question. I don't hear you talk about this a lot, but I wanna see what you think of. Okay, do you think there's a connection with chronic inflammation and parasites?
Parasites? Oh yeah. It's something that it's relevant for a lot of people. And we think if we're living in the West's industrialized nation, it's just a problem for developing countries. That's not true. It's something that you can see around the world. And it's not relevant for everybody. But that's another reason why we run labs, because a lot of these chronic health problems, when you're talking about chronic fatigue or chronic inflammatory problems or autoimmune conditions, mental health issues, we have to keep an open mind diagnostically and from a health history standpoint to see what are the pieces to their puzzle. And you could have something like anxiety or chronic fatigue or gastrointestinal symptoms. And what's driving that for one person is probably not going to be the same exact collection of things that's driving it for the next person. So we see in functional medicine, GI issues, stomach issues, or anxiety, depression, or fatigue, or autoimmune conditions. We see those as check engine lights on the car. We know the check engine light's on, but why? And we have to look underneath the hood, proverbially speaking, just like a good mechanic does. He cooks the car up to diagnostics. And that's the same thing we're doing in functional medicine. And part of that misfiring underneath the hood for some people are things living in the gut that shouldn't be living in the gut in high amounts. Now, it's important to mention that there are symbiotic and mutualistic beneficial or benign parasites and protozoans, and humans would have evolved with them for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And I don't always see like certain protozoans and parasites as always the enemy, because they may be living in the gut and the person's not having any symptoms. So there's this confluence, this relationship between genetics and epigenetics, this person's body and the relationship with the world around them and things living in their gut. For some people, there's protozoans and parasites and they're fine. Their labs are fine. They feel fine. You may find it on a lab randomly because you're looking at other things, but that's not a main driver of their symptoms. And then some people, it's going to be a trigger for them. It's going to cause flare-ups. It's going to slow down their recovery, and you have to address it at that point. So context matters. Putting it in context with the health history, looking at everything around it's important. But yeah, it's definitely something that I have written about on our website. If you go to drwilco.com and talking about good helminthic therapies and exciting research and looking at bacterial, or I should say microbiome diversity, bacteria, yeast, and parasite. And it can be a sign of a good thing. And then sometimes it's not. So I see, like, when you look at certain parasites, yeast, bacteria, they're not always inherently bad. You know, we want the balance. It's the Goldilocks principle. We don't want too high, you don't want too low, you want just right. And if in context with a healthy person, good microbiome diversity is a good thing. But for some people, yeast overgrowth, bacterial overgrowth, or parasitic overgrowth will drive inflammation, immune stress, increase intestinal permeability or leaky gut syndrome. And certain parasitic infections are associated with triggering autoimmune conditions because of that. So it's definitely something that should be looked at and then put it into context. That's a great question. I don't get asked that very often.
I'm very into parasites and heavy metals, and I think it's a big part of the the inflammation and
yeah, for sure,
how we feel. Okay, so I love the quote you put on your Instagram the other day. It's hard to eat intuitively when your body is in a state of inflammation. And it's so true. I love it so much because I follow an intuitive eating lifestyle, but I had to go through an elimination diet because I had I wouldn't say severe, but I did have acne, and I did have candida, and like all the regulars, which is not regular. It's, people see it like normal. So I did have to go through elimination diet before, because when you are in inflammation, you really can't even think. You don't even know. It's like what's your take on that? I mean, how do you tell somebody you have to, don't follow a diet, but you do have to first follow a diet,
I know, right? It's such a very nuanced conversation, because look, I writing the inflammation spectrum, we talk about, based on the quiz score in the book, they have a tailored elimination diet approach. In Ketotarian, my first book, we talk about a mostly plant-based ketogenic lifestyle. But beyond the covers, and if you read the book, if you read what I do, if you listen to what I say, there's so much bio-individuality within that. So how you use these tools in your life is going to look different from person to person. And that's the heart of functional medicine. We're all different. So I am an advocate for getting to the place of intuitive eating. But as you had said, like I posted on my Instagram, it's hard to be intuitive and to know what your body needs and loves when you're in a place of imbalance. And chronic inflammation is a state of imbalance. So is it intuition or is it hangriness? Is it intuition or blood sugar roller coaster? Is it intuition or stress eating? Stress eating, shame eating, binging is not intuition.
Yeah, it's
But yet you will, someone in that state, they're gonna be like, no, my body needs that. Well, is your body needs that, or is the body completely out of balance? You don't even know what your body needs. You just have insatiable cravings or hangriness or having these problems. So you have to create stillness and space to hear what your body needs. And many people, there's so much noise going on outside of them, but there's also noise going on inside of them, that they don't have that clarity and discernment, and they don't know their north on what their life looks like. And that manifests as food disordered eating and life disordered eating. So the point of why we're doing what we're doing in the inflammation spectrum in the book is to create stillness and space, calm things down, so you can know fully what your body loves and know fully what your body hates. So you have that food piece, maybe for the first time in someone's life, because there's a lot of internal and external noise that keep people back from knowing what their body actually needs. So the goal is intuitive eating, but you cannot do intuitive eating if you're completely out of balance, both physiologically as far as hormone imbalance, inflammation, neurotransmitter issues, gut-brain issues, but also mental emotional, which is bidirectional relationship with that. Our thoughts and emotions impact physiology, and physiology impacts thoughts and emotions. So yeah, it's definitely going to look different depending on who you're talking to.
Of course. So for this person that you see that it's, is the first step to go on an elimination diet?
Yeah, I would say that is the gold standard in clinical nutrition. It's the gold standard in functional medicine, to know from a data like what works for my body to do a properly formed elimination diet. And there's many ways to do it, but the way that I advocate it in the inflammation spectrum is to do, for people that score lower on that quiz in the book, they are going to do a core 4 plan, which you know already. But for people that don't know, grains, added sugar, dairy, and high omega-6 oils, industrial seed oils like canola and vegetable oil. Those are things, why did I pick those for? Well, research shows those are the most problematic for most people. Am I saying they're all problematic for all people? No, because going back to bioindividuality, we're all going to have different tolerances to things. And some people can have some of those foods, and we talk about the different types of them, and it's definitely a complex conversation. It's not a one size fits all. But those are the core 4. And then people that score higher on the quiz will do the eliminate track, which is the core 4 plus 4 more food groups, which is nightshades, peppers, tomatoes, eggplants, white potatoes, goji berries, nuts and seeds, legumes or beans, and eggs. All whole foods, all real foods, nothing inherently wrong with them. But what works for one person, even if it's healthy, may not be right for the next person. So I want myself as a doctor to have an open mind about what works for one person and what doesn't. But I also want the reader of the book, if I'm not consulting them, to all have an open mind for their body, because you can get this feedback to know, okay, look, I don't feel good when I eat that food, but you have to calm and settle things down for a while. But then when you bring it back in and you notice you don't feel well eating that food, which reintroduction of those foods is just as important as eliminating to calm things down. You have to find out the information for yourself, and reintroduction will give that to you. Is it worth it or not to keep it in your life? And there's that transition of, okay, this is not about these are all the foods I can't have. It's not about that. It's about loving your body enough to feed it things that your body loves. It's about loving your body enough to nourish it with good foods that will heal you. And it's less about, I can't have this or that. It's about, no, I like feeling better more than I miss that food. Yeah. And that's that food piece that I keep talking about, that is the catalytic change and the difference, the paradigm shift between a diet or a plan or a program to just your life, and knowing what works for you and what doesn't.
I love that. Yeah, it's kind of like, and I think in the process of eliminating this food and then reintroducing, kind of like you learn how to, you're more connected with intuition, because you're feeling now, you're like, you're doing an elimination diet, right? You haven't had this let's say dairy for a long time, and then you reintroduce it, and now you feel, if it's not something that is working with your body, or you feel that, oh my god, I lost weight, or I'm not I don't have inflammation, like feel like like inflamed more. So I do feel that it's like an introduction to intuitive eating.
Yes, it is.
You're gonna feel it like right away, right? Because you feel right away.
Right.
Okay, so do you ever eat like pizza or something?
Yeah,
Like honestly, but like really, like not every day because every day is
mhm,
not good, but
yeah.
like Sunday pizza. Do you ever do that?
Well, I think it's. First of all, I love pizza, but it's about, and for me, there's some non-negotiables. I'm not going to have a gluten-containing pizza. I just don't eat gluten. But that's for me. There's going to be some next person that does fine with wheat once in a while, or if they get sourdough or whole wheat, and they're fine with that. But for me, I've done the process that I talked about in the book. And
Mhm.
I know through that list, there's going to be some things that are non-negotiables for me. So does that mean I don't eat pizza? No, absolutely. We live in such an awesome time where we do have access, and increasingly more affordable options. There's a long way to go, of course, but people have access to almond flour crusts or cauliflower crusts, and you can get, a nut cheese versus regular cheese. And, you can even do a nightshade-free sauce, like a tomato sauce, which we have a recipe in the book. So there's ways to adjust what that food looks like. It still tastes amazing, but it looks different. So to answer your question, no, I don't have regular pizza, but I modify it because I like that food. And that's why I want this to be realistic and practical for people. But I have non-negotiables. One negotiable I have that should be a non-negotiable for me is sugar. Like I will have natural sugar, like coconut sugar and uh, like organic, whatever, other types of sugar, maple sugar, honey. I'll have more of that than I know I should have some days because I do a cyclical ketotarian way of lifestyle. So I know like I'm having too much, but I know that about myself now.
You know it.
So I can make the logical decision to eat it or not. I'm not shaming myself. I'm not stressing about it, but it's a choice. But you have to know what works for your body first to make that educated choice.
Exactly. Okay, great. I need to see that no mato.
Tomato sauce, yeah.
Because, I realized that tomatoes are not good for me. So
Mhm.
I stopped eating tomatoes. It was like, I started, developing this like, symptoms, and
Yeah.
even my scalp gets itchy. It's so crazy.
Mhm.
And when I stopped eating tomatoes, it went away. And I'm like,
Yeah.
you know,
Interesting.
doesn't happen with cucumbers, which, I mean, I don't know, they're in the same family, but I guess.
Yeah, as far as the skins are concerned, yeah. So, yeah, nightshades, and you'll find like under the paradigm of nightshades, like peppers, tomatoes, eggplants, white potatoes, goji berries, and we talk about this in the reintroduction chapter of the book, is that you'll find that maybe some nightshades may not do well, but other ones do.
Mhm.
They do work well. So it's not a one size fits all. It goes back to that bio individuality. We're all created differently.
Mhm.
Yeah, good point.
Okay. So what were your five top eliminating foods that you said that were on your top list?
Yeah,
Grains,
yeah.
dairy.
The core, there's four on the core four. So grains, added sugar,
Mhm.
high omega-6 oils like canola and vegetable oil, industrial seed oils, and dairy.
Okay.
And then we have conversations about the type of dairy and all that stuff. But look, you can dig in beyond that. But
Mhm.
on the superficial side of things, those would be the core four.
Okay. Awesome. Um, we talked about the connection with the gut and the brain. You mentioned that there's a huge connection with depression and
Hmm.
the body being in a state of inflammation, which people don't put it together. They feel they need this like magic pill that doesn't
Hmm.
even work. I mean,
Yeah,
you have to
I
work
know.
with that, right?
But and for some people, they think that's their only option. In functional medicine, we're not anti-medication. We ask the question, what's your most effective option that causes you the least amount of side effects? And for some people, they're alive because of medications, but that's not the majority of people that are being prescribed medications. That's the only option that's given to so many people. Yet there's so many other alternatives that are just as effective or more effective,
Yeah.
without all the potential negative side effects that they wield. So it's to me, it's an over, like, people should know informed consent requires information. To know what your options are requires information. If you're saying no, it's just option A, it's this pharmaceutical drug, and the person is a layperson, they don't even know they have other options, it's not even their fault. It's the whole trickle down educational system of people and their healthcare. So I think obviously things are changing. I mean, we're seeing growing amounts of mainstream institutions that like the Cleveland Clinic, who are brilliantly opening up these world-class functional medicine centers to inform people. Because you can't look at the statistics around the world, the growing levels of chronic and autoimmune conditions, and say this isn't working. We need to do something different to see something different. So people are starting to growingly, slowly, albeit, having agency over their wellness once more, and knowing they have choices in their life instead of just, no, you settle for it, or, oh, you're just depressed, take this antidepressant, or are you just getting older, you're just a new mom, there's nothing wrong, you just take this pill, see you later. And they have nothing to show for other than a growing prescription list as they age. And we need to change our paradigm on healthcare. So it's a big conversation. There's a lot of different moving parts to it, but it's hopefully, in my small way, I'm doing something to shift that.
It is a big conversation because honestly, we also have to be responsible that we have to create our reality. So we also have to be responsible and say, I don't want to wake up like this every day. What can I do to feel a little better while, eating healthy and eating foods that, that don't harm us, right?
Right.
So it's like both worlds. It's like let's eat the healthy foods and eliminate, the ones that are maybe triggering, but let's also work on us. Let's journal. Let's, what are the behaviors that I need to change that I'm not liking? Why are we acting this way? Why are we always this way? And kind of like shift it, right? So it's kind of like it's like our responsibility, and maybe a pill could work and a healthy food, but it's more us willing to change.
Totally. Yeah, I agree.
All right, so I get so many followers telling me that they have the number one autoimmune disease, which is
Hashimoto's disease.
So many. And most of these people are moms.
Yeah.
Is it because they didn't fix something prior to become pregnant?
Yeah, I think these things are brewing, like I said, 4 to 10 years prior, but pregnancy can be the catalyst to trigger the onset of it. And you notice it more, it was going on. And there's 3 main sections on the autoimmune inflammation spectrum. There's silent autoimmunity, there's autoimmune reactivity that many people find themselves on, but they're not bad enough to be full-blown diagnosable. But pregnancy was the tipping point, the straw that broke the camel's back, or giving birth was, or whatever, because your immune system's shifting, your hormones are shifting. So Hashimoto's disease or autoimmune thyroiditis is the most common autoimmune condition. These autoimmune thyroid issues, the American Endocrine Society estimates that over 90% of cases, low thyroid cases in the West, has an autoimmune component. It's very, very common. It was actually the first autoimmune disease, coincidentally or not coincidentally, the first autoimmune disease ever discovered in science, known as an autoimmune condition in the early 20th century. So yeah, it is. It's definitely, there's a vast amount of people falling through those cracks. And that's one of our top patient base, people that we've consulted over the past 11 years, because they're told, there's nothing you can do about it. Just take this thyroid replacement hormone. Well, look, that's a piece of the puzzle for some people for sure, but it's not the entire puzzle. And anybody that's on a thyroid replacement hormone, but it will tell you if they have Hashimoto's, that's not their only puzzle. That's not their only piece to the puzzle. And they have to look at all the other ones too.
In your experience, how long does it take to recover? Let's say somebody, consults with you. They all, and you do all the blood tests and everything, and they do follow, your recommendations. How long does it take to recover? I know everybody is different, but because some people think that, in a month I'm gonna be great, when no, for so many years, your body was telling you something and you didn't pay attention. So does it take, let's say, more than 2 years to recover?
It could for some people. And to be clear, there's no quote unquote cure for autoimmunity. Once that autoimmune is triggered, the goal is to put it into remission, to balance things out, to live a long, healthy, vibrant life. But it's the propensity for autoimmunity will always be there, or could potentially be there. It depends on what the person's going through, other factors, other variables. But yeah, it could take months and years for people, depending on the severity of case and their other cofactors you have to take into consideration.
So it requires a lot of patience and
Yeah.
like discipline, you know?
For sure.
Okay. Before we wrap up, we have a few more questions for you. And what are the basics of a keto diet? If you can say it in few words.
Yeah, sure.
What are the basics?
It's a keto diet. It's high fat, moderate protein, low carb. It's shifting your body to becoming a fat burner in a natural metabolic state known as nutritional ketosis. It's like putting a log on the fire. It's slow burning. It's sustainable. It'll help you throughout the day for energy, and you could burn your own fat. The alternative, metabolically speaking, is burning sugar for fuel, and that's like kindling on the fire. It'll create light, but you have to keep putting kindling on all day long, probably 6 times a day, or you're going to get hangry and irritable, and the flame's going to go out. So those are the two metabolic: be burning sugar or burning fat. Ketosis is burning fat, a log on the fire, which is a great way to burn fat. It fuels your brain. It improves mitochondrial function, so good from a cellular energy standpoint. And it's not only just a way to burn fat and energy, help with energy and brain function, it's also a signaling molecule or an epigenetic modulator, which means it does things for our biochemistry. One of them is it's a strong, potent anti-inflammatory. So it downregulates things like NF-kappa B and COX-2 and NLRP3, these pro-inflammatory cytokines that are high in a lot of people. So it calms inflammation and upregulates things like NRF2 and AMPK, these pro-antioxidant longevity pathways, these anti-disease pathways. But I advocate for a ketogenic diet in a clean way. So it's clean keto, or what I call ketotarian. It's a mostly plant-based ketogenic, a fresh way to do it. And we could do it seasonally or cyclically. And there's so many ways to do it, to use it as a tool to gain metabolic flexibility. So it's definitely a bio-individual conversation that I have in Ketotarian. So you can use this tool, but in a way that works for you sustainably. Because I couldn't care less to add to a fad diet. I don't want to do that. How can we use this tool that research is showing to be beneficial in a way that makes sense for long-term lifestyle changes? That's all. And
I feel that this is the one that makes more sense, and this is the one that, like, if you know, I would follow. Actually, I have your book, Ketotarian, and it was so interesting because I thought it was going to be, let's say, all plant-based, and then I see that it's not, and I loved it more.
It's on the cover. It's mostly plant-based for that reason. It's flexibility.
Yeah, but you know, it is like 80%. Really, really, really loved it. So sometimes when I don't know what to cook, like I need an idea, I go to your book.
Oh, thank you. That makes me happy. Thanks.
Actually, on our food guide in my membership, we used 3 of your recipes.
Oh, cool. Awesome. Glad, happy to hear.
My members already did
love it.
Your recipes. All right, and to finish off, Dr. Will, what are the top blood tests that you recommend? Somebody, you know, even if, let's say, they don't consult with you, but you say, okay, you need to get this, this, and this.
I would say number one, look at your blood sugar, look at your A1C, which is the 3-month average of your blood sugar. Look at triglycerides, and then look at inflammation levels. So look at CRP. We want it under 1 in functional medicine, high sensitivity C-reactive protein. Homocysteine, we want under 7. These other inflammatory markers, those to me would be the best. So a metabolic, a lipid panel, specifically NMR panel would be great. That's a little bit more detailed lipid panel that looks at the subfractionation of lipids, and then some inflammation markers. Look, you can get beyond that. You can look at hormones if it's relevant to you. You can look at thyroid, a full thyroid panel. But if you want to just look at the basics, and those are sidebars in both of the books. In Ketotarian, there's some labs, and then in inflammation spectrum, there's some other labs. So people can look at the optimal ranges, which is important, not just looking at the lab's reference range, but looking at the optimal range for their doctor to run.
I feel that a lot of people do blood tests that they only see it flat, like, oh, like I have low levels of vitamin D, I need to do more vitamin D.
Hmm.
That's not only it, right?
Right. No.
Like, so
It's a symphony. It's a symphony of biochemistry that are interplaying with each other. So you don't. All labs are a snapshot in time. Whenever you got the lab, and it's important to put it in context. So yeah, these are all stories to tell about somebody's health, and you have to put it into
I think the
context.
best thing to do is get a consultation with you so you can follow with us the blood test.
Yeah, well, hey, I love what I do. My passion is I get to consult people around the world via webcam, and I definitely love that. I appreciate you saying that.
So where should people reach you to have a consultation, to book a
Yeah,
consultation with you?
everything's at drwillcole.com. That's drwillcole.com. And yeah, we offer a free webcam or phone health evaluation to kind of see if a consult with me would be appropriate for them, get their questions answered. And we have a lot of other free content on the site too.
Okay, amazing. Okay, I'm gonna book one right now. I'm gonna book
Well,
a.
I look forward to talking to you.
Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Will,
Of
and
course.
hope to see you soon and
Yes.
maybe invite you to, my new podcast.
Yeah, I would love that. Well, thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you. Have a great day.
You too. Thanks. Bye.